Hello booktube, it's Leah Cooper, and today I'm bringing you what will hopefully be a succinct review of Hexarchate Stories by Yoon Ha Lee. I received a copy of this book via NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. All of my opinions are 100% my own. So this is a collection of short stories by Yoon Ha Lee, and overall I gave it 4 stars. Usually with short story collections, I individually rate the stories in it and then do an average, but I mostly read this book on my phone during breaks and lunch hours at work. I recently started working at a used bookstore, and I couldn't really carry around a notebook and take notes or anything on it. I just kind of read it and enjoyed it, to be frank. So I'm going to go ahead and read the summary of this off of Goodreads because I didn't write my own summary, and this is pretty good. Hexarchate Stories is the essential short story collection set in the universe of Nine Fox Gambit, or the universe of the Machineries of Empire trilogy. An ex-Kel art thief has to save the world from a galaxy-shattering prototype weapon. A general, outnumbered 8-1, must outsmart his opponent. A renegade returns from seclusion to bury an old comrade. From the incredible imagination of Hugo and Arthur C. Clarke nominated author Yoon Ha Lee comes a collection of stories set in the world of the best-selling Nine Fox Gambit. Showcasing Lee's extraordinary imagination, this collection takes you to the very beginnings of the Hexarchate's history and reveals never new and never before seen stories. So I think that sums up what this collection is quite clearly. I think, if I remember correctly, I want to say there were about 15 short stories in this. They range from prose poetry to flash fiction to I think another edition of this book on Goodreads calls it a sequela. So a sequel novella to the original trilogy, which I want to say was about 40% of the page length of this book. My edition was something like 240, 260 pages. Am I remembering that correctly? And I do remember that of that, the novella took up about 90 pages. So it was a good chunk of the collection. And for that novella alone, the collection is worth getting if you are a fan of the trilogy, or if you've read the trilogy. If you were a little bit disappointed in Revenant Gun, as I was, I gave Revenant Gun like 3 stars. I was quite let down with how it ended and its structure. Some of the authorial choices in that book were just kind of befuddling to me and really kind of dampened my enjoyment of that book. And this novella radically reshaped my feelings about Revenant Gun, and so for that alone, I think this is absolutely a must read. In addition to that, the rest of the collection is good. Like, all of the stories are competently written. I mean, if you have read anything by Yoon Ha Lee and you like his writing style, then you're going to enjoy these stories, I think. Your mileage may vary on a few of them because some of them are a little bit more experimental. A lot of them seem like they were written for Lee's own kind of entertainment or amusement, or as like writing exercises, or as thinking about putting them in a collection for something else. And they really do span kind of the timelines that we don't see. So there's a couple of stories that predate Nine Fox Gambit. There are several stories that take place during Jideo's, not childhood per se, but like his life as a young man, before the treason. I can't remember, the fortress of 1,000 Needles or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. So you get like glimpses of his life and his experience as Shuo's and Kel before he kind of set his whole revenge plot into motion. You also get a few stories or glimpses of like Cheris's life as a young person, as a young cadet. And then there's the novella. And the novella, I'm just going to have spoiler warning for like Revenant Gun going forward, because I don't think I can talk about the novella without some very basic spoilers. One of my biggest problems with Revenant Gun in particular was the point of view choices, like the point of view choices made no sense to me, as someone who was like, who liked Nine Fox Gambit so much because I was so invested in Judeo and Cheris. And this was a problem in Raven Stratagem, but it wasn't quite as big of a problem because at least in Raven Stratagem did we get Cheris's POV? I don't think we did, but she was still physically present. She was a big player character and still like page-wise, like 50% of the pages. In Revenant Gun, she is present in the like smallest POV, and it's someone else's POV. She just happens to also be there with them, and they're not a bad POV, but still we don't get Cheris's POV. Judeo's POV is gone from books 2 and 3 effectively, though obviously in Revenant Gun we get this sort of bastardized Moth Judeo who has some of his memories, just like the ones that Cheris didn't consume. I have some questions about like where his memories came from, like where did Hexarch, what's his name? I can't remember that guy's name. Not Megudez, the other one. The engineer. I can't remember his name. I don't remember where, I don't feel like it was ever made clear where exactly he got the pieces of Judeo's memory that he had to craft Moth Judeo, but I felt completely out of touch with that character. I never emotionally connected with him. The fact that he was like, I didn't really like him. He had a lot of like emotional conflict at like the end of his arc in that book, and I didn't connect with it at all. And so the fact that like so much of the emotional conclusion of Revenant Gun hinged on the character, I think a reader connecting with Moth Judeo and then just being okay with the fact that they were supposed to have an emotional attachment to Cheris's story arc, even though we hadn't had her as a POV character for 2 books, really ruined the end of that book for me. And I was left very dissatisfied, to be frank. And this all sounds like I hate the book or whatever. And I didn't love it. I think I gave it a 3 stars. It definitely was not Nine Fox Gambit. That all being said, if you're still here, if you're still plowing with me, the novella in this short story collection radically reshaped my feelings about the trilogy as a whole, and also Revenant Gun to some degree. And I know this novella cannot be a part of Revenant Gun because it's just it wouldn't fit. It wouldn't even fit as like this book needed an extra 100 pages. It was already quite long. But it wouldn't. It's tonally different a little bit, and it feels so much more, it feels so much closer to form, to parts of Nine Fox Gambit that I really enjoyed. Some of that is just the fact that it is from Cheris, half of it's from Cheris's point of view, half of it's from Judeo's point of view, and like the parts of it that are from Moth Judeo's point of view, for some reason, worked so much better for me than they do in Revenant Gun. And maybe that's because he's playing off Cheris for a lot of it. And like, I love her character so much, and I think she works so integrally to the story that maybe that's why, like, I can't quite put my finger on it, but I felt much more sympathetic for him. It really made me rethink his storyline in Revenant Gun, which I just did not connect with at all. Like, I actually kind of felt empathetic for him in this novella. And like I said, then we also got Cheris's POV, we got Judeo's POV. It was like, it was just like all of the things that I wanted Revenant Gun to be, and it wasn't. And so like, I was so happy to get a copy of this short story collection and to read it, and it was so satisfying. it, because it's not part of the original trilogy, you know, it can't ever completely fix kind of the letdown I experienced with it, but I'm really glad that I read it. I had a lot of fun reading the collection as a whole and reading that novella in particular. But like, that's not to overshadow. There are some real gems in this collection. There are some real just like fun adventure stories. There's a couple pieces of just like really beautiful writing where I think Lee was experimenting. The other great thing is that Lee wrote kind of little author notes at the end of each story talking about talking about his inspiration, or what he originally wrote this short story for. So like gives you a little bit insight into the author's kind of headspace and all that sort of stuff. I greatly enjoyed it. Have I rambled enough? This is 100% for people who have read the trilogy. That's it. If you haven't read and it's really not for people who have only read Nine Fox Gambit, because they don't think it won't mean anything and you'll be spoiled for a bunch of stuff. It's for people who have read the trilogy. And I would highly, highly recommend you check it out, even if you were, like me, kind of disappointed in where the trilogy went. I think it's still a must read. Like, if you still, like, if you enjoy Yoon Ha Lee's writing and you like Cheris as a character, read this. Simple as that. Or at least get it and read the last novella. But I would highly recommend you try some of the other stories, because a lot of them are fun adventure stories set in an interesting universe, because this universe is interesting. I will leave a link to the Goodreads page for this book down below if you're interested in checking it out, getting yourself a copy. Like I said, I gave it a 4 stars. I highly recommend it, with the caveat that it is for people who have read the trilogy. Thanks for watching. Let me know down below if you've read this trilogy, or if you're thinking about it, or if you have any sort of feelings about it. I don't know if you think I'm completely off base with like some of my negative opinions about Revenant Gun. Go ahead, or if you felt the same way, if you're thinking about picking this book up, etc., etc., etc. If you've enjoyed this review or any of my other content, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new video. I don't post super regularly, but I do post occasionally. Thanks for watching. See ya.